seat's about to collapse. Music's supposed to be playing? You in charge of the roving mic?
Yeah,
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Cambridge East Community Forum. For those that don't know, my name's Councillor Henry Batchelor, and I'm the lead cabinet member for communities at South Cambridgeshire District Council. How this forum tends to operate, because the geographic area straddles both Cambridge City and South Cambridgeshire districts, we tend to split the chairing between myself from South Cambs District Council and Philippa, who's sitting on my right, from the Cambridge City Planning Service. So yeah, this meeting is just my turn. So good evening, everyone. Nice to meet those that I haven't met before. Yes, so we've got an agenda on the screen in front of you, as you can see. We have had one slight alteration. The representative from WSP has unfortunately been taken ill, so won't be joining us this evening. What that does mean is that we do have slightly more time now, so an extra 10 minutes on the Marley item. So if there are any sort of further questions, we can take a bit more time going through those if there are any, if there is anything further that people want to cover. Yes, I think that's probably all I need to say in way of an introduction. But what I understand is, I know there are some elected councillors in the room from district, city and county councils. So I thought it might be worthwhile, those members of our community, maybe just raising your hands, and someone, maybe Philippa, will bring you a mic, and you might be able to introduce yourself so everyone else in the room and those online, because I forgot to mention we are streaming this online, audio only. Unfortunately, we don't have a camera facility. But yes, so if, yeah, madam, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello.
Thank you. And maybe if we go along the back row there to Neil and Alex.
Neil Shaler, I'm the Vice Chair of Cambridgeshire County Council Highways and Transport Committee.
Thank you. And which ward do you represent, Neil?
Oh, I represent
Division, apologies. Thank you. Alex?
Good evening, everyone. Alex Bulat, County Councillor for Abbey and the Vice Chair of Communities on the County Council.
Thank you. And I think we have John at the front here.
Oh.
Hi, good evening. I'm John Williams. I'm the district councillor for Fen Ditton and Fulbourn, and I'm also a colleague of Henry's on the South Cambs cabinet. I'm the lead member for resources.
Thank you. And then finally, I saw just snuck in at the back there, Pippa as well, who's joined us. Pippa, I don't know if you want to briefly introduce yourself and what your role is here.
Hello, yes, I'm Pippa Halings and I'm the MP for South Cambridgeshire. So yeah, your local MP. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Okay, well, I think that's everything we need to do in the way of introductions. So we'll move on to the first item, which I'm hoping is about to appear on the screen. Yes, so we have a planning update from Philippa Kelly from the Greater Cambridge Planning Service. So Philippa.
Hopefully you can all hear me. Thank you. I'm going to stay standing for this short update. General planning update. Planning is certainly a very lively topic at the moment. I'll provide a little update on some of the wider things that are currently taking place, which reflect national debate about housing and the acceleration of growth and delivery. So at the national level, we have the government's rule book for planning, the National Planning Policy Framework, which was updated in December last year. And that framework sets out what local planning authorities and developers can and can't do when planning developments. And the updated document includes new housing objectives, including the delivery of 1.5 million new homes over the next 5 years nationally, and a revised way of calculating what councils need to deliver their housing over the years ahead. And these new housing targets and the government's planning guidance means that the joint housing target for the City of Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire has increased from just over 1,700 homes a year to about 2,300. And combined with something called a buffer, which has been introduced, means that the shared planning service needs to be able to find a supply of about 12,000 homes in Greater Cambridge over the next 5 years. And changing this target for new homes is inevitably going to create some challenges for the shared planning service, but we are working on preparing our next housing update report, which will be published in April next month. And as part of this work, we are looking at ways of speeding up the delivery of the homes that already have planning permission in Greater Cambridge, as well as identifying suitable future developments in order to meet this new target. And all this work will be progressed through the joint Greater Cambridge Local Plan. And then another update from a national level, you may have heard of the Cambridge Growth Company. This was set up under the last government. It's been awarded funding by this government to undertake a number of key activities. Those key activities including at a national level, there's a national project on new towns looking for locations, including across the Cambridge-Oxford growth area for new towns and big extensions. And there's a report due on the findings of that research project later on this summer. And at a regional and local level, the Cambridge Growth Company is looking at ways of accelerating delivery, trying to speed up the process of building more homes faster. And it's also looking at developing an evidence base to support the future growth plan. And that growth plan will be sitting above our own Greater Cambridge Local Plan to identify what sort of delivery vehicle and mechanism will be needed to deliver these long-term government objectives. So that's all from me. I'm happy to take questions in the slot for questions and answers. But in the meantime, I'm happy to hand over to, I think, Rebecca and David, who are providing an update on Springstead Village.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm David Fletcher. I'm planning consultant working on the land north of Cherry Hinton Springstead Village project. I'm just doing question and answer tonight, so I'm going to hand over to Rebecca to do the presentation.
Thanks, David. Yeah, sorry. Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Ward. I'm the Principal Planning Officer from the Greater Cambridgeshire Planning Service. I've been predominantly working on Springstead Village, so I work on the planning applications that come in for the site. And I'm managed by Philippa Kelly, who was just talking about what's changed at a national level. So if you can go to slide 2. So I thought I'd just show you a slide orientating you to the location. So the site's to the east of the airport and it compromises about 55 hectares of land. Half of the site is in the city, which is the orange, and the other half is in South Cambridgeshire District Council. So we often have to see 2 planning applications coming in for them areas just because of its cross-boundary nature. So outline planning permission was granted on this site in 2020 for 1,200 homes. There's 40% affordable housing, there's primary school, secondary school, and there's also a local centre which will compromise some retail facilities, a new community centre and some custom build homes as well. There's 27 hectares of public open space across the site. So yeah, a big site and a lot going on over the next few years. After it was granted outline planning permission, Bellway Latimer acquired the site and have been submitting applications and delivering each of the phases as we go along. Thank you. So what has been submitted to the councils to date and what's been approved So as you can see on this plan, the yellow area, which is Reserve Matters 1 for infrastructure. So this is the key primary roads, the drainage facilities, that was approved a few years ago. Reserve Matters 2, which is for the sales and marketing arena, which is the area in the pink. That was approved for 9 show homes, which are built and can be people can walk around now. The next Reserve Matters was for a further 351 homes, and that's the area in purple. So that was approved a couple of years ago. And then we've got RMA4, which is the red area, which is in the city council boundary, which was approved for a further 136 homes. So to date, we've got around 500 homes that have been approved on the site. About 67 of them homes, I'm told, are now occupied. And obviously there's more in the pipeline. I don't know if many of you've been down that way, but there's certainly a lot of activity going on. We've now got a temporary community centre that's been opened on the site, and that's where the red, if you can see at the bottom there, but in the red corner, and that's managed by St Andrew's Church. So then that centre can be used and rented out by residents and local people. So in terms of what's next, so next Reserve Matters will be in the area in green. I'm told by Bellway Latimer that application has been submitted now. It will go through the council's validation process. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll send consultation letters out, starting that formal planning application process. That planning application will be for 292 homes. It will be for the retail facilities and it will be for the community centre. So it really starts to see the heart of the development kind of come to life. Okay. So in terms of what has been delivered on site today, I've just put a few pictures on. A few of you might have been up there before, but on the left-hand side is a picture looking down the primary streets. So the key bits of infrastructure have gone in, and obviously a few homes along there have been also delivered. The road's called Saffron Way now. On the right-hand side, there's an example of one of the streets within the first phase of the development, which is now occupied. And then the next one. This is just a picture of the temporary community centre. So this building will eventually be it's 2 semi-detached homes, but for the moment they've kept both floors open and they adjoin, creating a space for the community centre for a few years until the permanent one is opened. And then on the other side, sorry, this is one of the neighbourhood parks that's been built and delivered. And whenever we go out on site to have a look around, there's always young kids and families playing in it. So it's already quite a popular facility. Okay, and this is more just for if you want to take it away, but these are the application details. And I put a link at the bottom. So if you did want to go onto the website and download the presentation, you can click on the relevant planning numbers to have a look at the details. I think that's everything. It was just a quick planning update, really. But if you've got any questions, obviously happy to respond. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Rebecca and Philippa, for those updates. We do now have a window for questions. If anyone does have any questions for either of our planning colleagues or indeed David. So you need to wait for the mic to come to you, otherwise people watching online won't be able to hear. Before we take the question, though, I probably need to point out that online we do have some other councillors who have joined us as well, albeit remotely. So we have Councillor Claire Daunton, who's the County Councillor for the Fulbourn Division, Councillor Bryony Goodliff, who's the Councillor for the Cherry Hinton Division, and Councillor Carla Hoffman, who's the District Councillor for the Fen Ditton and Fulbourn Division, as John is at the front here. Anyway, so yeah, please.
Sorry, Councillor Naomi Bennett speaking, Abbey Ward. I've got a little piece of information I'd like to share with you and then a question. So my piece of information is that the first resident to relocate from the Eakin Road housing estate is now at Springstead and is very happy there. I get regular messages from them on social media, and they could not be more pleased. I thought I'd like to share that because generally we councillors just moan, complain, and very rarely give you any good news.
That's the job of a councillor, unfortunately. People only get in touch when there's
Yeah.
bad news. But no, thank you. I'm sure, the people from Springstead especially are pleased to hear that. Thank you.
And my question is, obviously, people moving from Eakin Road are very interested in Springstead because it's very close physically to Eakin Road, even though some of it is technically in a different district council. And we wondered what information you can share about future release dates.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Don't know who wants to take that. David, I see you limbering up.
Yeah, I think firstly, just to say thank you for the feedback. I say it's always great to get some positive feedback in as you say, it's easy to get the negatives, but no, really positive to get some good feedback. And what I should have said at the beginning, I've also got Ulrich van Heck here, who is the sort of project director for Bellway Latimer. So I might pass over to Ulrich just to answer the question in terms of sort of future releases of affordable housing.
I don't have the specific dates. You'll not be surprised to hear. We can very easily share our delivery program with yourselves and with anyone else that wishes to have that information. I will say that typically we have the sort of next 3 years mapped out as far as our numbers, and they will range between 100 and 150 units per year, of which 40% will be social housing. But as for the exact delivery of houses in which location, I can share that information if it's needed. We can get the information where we need to send it, and we're happy to do so.
Okay, thank you. David.
Hi, I'm Dave Bowden. I'm the Business Development Director for Stagecoach. Is it possible for the Shared Planning Service to please share what commitments in the planning application have been made in terms of the development of Springstead Village? First of all, in terms of, shall we say, consideration of impact on bus services and the building of Springstead Village, because what is extremely frustrating for us is, despite 3 conversations with the PR firm who are supposed to engage to say, please, could somebody talk to us about what's happening in terms of building? We've had 0 engagement of any kind whatsoever. And obviously past the site is one of the busiest bus routes in Cambridge, Service 1. And obviously Cherry Hinton roundabout is a particular key artery. And we've had a lot of disruption caused. And it's very saddening that the only way the team in Cambridge can find out what's happening is that I actually live in Teversham off Gazelle Way. And it's when basically I get a Springstead Village poster through my door, so I have to rely on taking those in. So it'd be lovely if the Shared Planning Service could share what obligations the developers have to have effective engagement in terms of sustainable transport. And also, once the village is built, obviously there's going to be a big bus requirement there. And again, very saddening of 0 effective engagement whatsoever so far in terms of any transport needs for the people who are there. I presume there must be some form of sustainable travel plan coordinator at some point. It'd be lovely to know who they are, because other than a brief email saying, would I chuck the people who are there some free bus tickets? And when I politely said, no, sorry, that's not how we swing. We like to do it properly. I've had 0 engagement in. So really the Shared Planning Service could help us with that. That'd be really good, because it's an exciting development. It's one with a lot of potential. And it's just saddening that, when there is building works, we have absolute serious problems on our bus network. And just to get some engagement, some communication going would be lovely.
Okay. I don't know if anyone from the planning service wants to pick up on that. Okay.
Yeah, do you know?
Firstly, very brave to give your address away as well. So that's
Yeah, David, thank you for those observations. We can certainly take away in terms of the applications that we've got and we're dealing with and that are live. We've got the links and we can put that on our website. But in terms of the bus service issue. We're not the highway authority, but we can certainly link you up with our colleagues at the county highways team. Unfortunately, one of them was supposed to be attending today, but it isn't here. We can convene the meetings and we can look at the travel plan commitments under the original Section 106 agreement and look at the delivery vehicles to be able to look at things like the bus issues. So we can help facilitate that.
Sorry, Philip, but Jez has said there is a plan. No one's ever shared it with us. And I think the most urgent priority is in terms of the build schedule, because we've had some quite serious, significant problems on Cherry Hinton roundabout.
Sorry, in terms of the what? I didn't catch that.
So the build, because traffic management, when there is a development on that roundabout, is really, really poor. And we've had some challenges basically getting ones through there because of really poor traffic management. So really the most urgent thing is just to try and encourage all concerned to actually effectively talk to the bus operator in the area so we can mitigate that, because that's just not happening.
Right. We can help to bring people together. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, lady at the front.
Hi, I'm Karen Voth Harmon. I'm the vicar at St Andrews, and we're managing the temporary community centre in Springstead, which is exciting, and we're excited to be open. One just following on from this comment, some of the major complaints we're hearing is about the bus service, that, you know, they're promised this bus service, but it takes so long now to get into the centre. So from a marketing point of view, I think Bellway would be well advised to do everything they can to get better bus services and things flowing through and past there, so that the residents are able to say to potential customers, yeah, this is easy. It is on a bus route that does eventually get to Cambridge. But it is a real problem. And I obviously get tons of complaints from people in Cherry Hinton about the situation, how long it takes buses to get now to the train station or to centre Cambridge. So just really backing up what you're saying there.
Yeah, thank you. And I think David's going to come back on that question.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm just going to go back to David's, one of David's points as well. And I think firstly to say, David, sorry if there's communication could have been slightly better than it had been, because we've got our own sort of PR company that does sort of advise local residents and stakeholders when there's going to be sort of road closures or road works in the local area. So firstly, from our side, very happy to take that away and make sure that you're on that list. So if there are any changes in terms of sort of okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll say you've got me and Ulrich here, who are the sort of decision makers from our side. So we will take it away. And if that's not been happening, we'll speak to those people and make sure that it does going forward. Secondly, to say, obviously from our perspective, I think as Karen said, obviously bus provision and sustainable transport, is a top priority for us. And I think if we can maybe just flick back to the master plan, but obviously the sort of primary road that goes through the site, that has been planned as a bus route. We've got our detailed consent for that route, which includes locations of bus stops along the route within the site. And I think, as Rebecca said, because we've now got planning consent for both the sort of RMA 3 and the RMA 4, we've got consent for both sides of the site. We've just submitted a planning application for the central part of the site. So what the intention will be is obviously to build that primary road through the site, which will be a bus route, and obviously we'll be keen to engage with operators on how that will work.
Sorry, have you ever spoken to any bus operators whatsoever about how that'll work? Because having gone through our records, I can't find any evidence you've ever engaged on that point.
So I understand that at the outline planning application stage, which was prior to our involvement, there were discussions with bus operators, but obviously since we've been involved, we've not been quite at the stage where obviously we've been able to have those discussions. But obviously it is obviously in our radar in terms of moving forward. I would say that there is a substantial financial contribution that's gone to the county council in terms of improved bus provision, which is with the county council in terms of how they, obviously how they spend that money and work with bus operators.
Okay, thank you. And we've got John at the front here, and then we do have a couple of questions online, but I'll prioritise those in the room first.
Yeah, just a bit of information actually. I was on the county council at the time that outline permission was given, and this was back in sort of 2016, pre then, and we did have a meeting with Stagecoach. I sat in a committee room at the county council with a couple of people from Stagecoach, and we talked about how to best serve the estate. There was an idea at the time to have a bypass, and that clearly wasn't practical for a bus service, and that's how we ended up with the through road with a bus gate. And there was provision in the 106 that to fund, I think it was an hourly bus service between the Park and Ride down Airport Way through the development, back up Coldens Lane, and then Mill Road into the city. And that was costed with Stagecoach, David. I mean, obviously it's well before your time, but you know, there were discussions with Stagecoach at the time about operating this service. I don't know what the triggers for it are. Clearly, it can't work if there isn't a road there at the moment, but there is something in the 106 for it.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a couple of questions online that I'll just read out myself, and then if an officer could respond, I think that'd be helpful. So a message from Councillor Claire Daunton, who said, can Rebecca say something about the timing of the schools on the site? And then sort of follow-up question from someone else, followed on from that saying, is there going to be a primary and a secondary school on the site? So are there, and when?
So there's the people that are in the room, there's a plan up, a master plan, and the secondary school is here, and the primary school is planned to be here. The secondary school, the land's due to be transferred by the 300th dwelling. So the land will be transferred from Bellway to the county council to then progress any kind of planning application on that site for a new school. And likewise, the primary school is the 350th dwelling. And that will go through the same process. And as far as I understand from our education colleagues, there's still a presumption that both will be still delivered. But the exact timing of when they'll be open, I'm unsure. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions for any of our planning colleagues? No, I don't think we do. So thank you very much, Rebecca, Philippa and David, for joining us. So we'll move on to our next item now, which is an update on the Voi electric e-bike and scooter extension. And we have Theo from Voi, who's come to talk to us. So Theo, I think if you use that mic up there.
Good evening, everybody. You hear me all right? Yeah, sounds like it's working. My name is Theo Goff. I am the city manager for Voi in Cambridge, here to talk to you about our expansion. Go to the next slide. So as a bit of background, Voi has been in Cambridge since 2020, with e-bikes joining the fleet in 2021. Previously, we were just scooters. In January 2024, the Department of Transport opened up the possibility to expand the operating area borders from where they originally were. This gave us scope to include areas that had previously been outside, like Teversham, Fulbourn, or to the north, Northstowe. There was a brief consultation or expression of interest led by the Combined Authority, which was at the start of last year. Unfortunately, that was then put on hold through the election period, but with the new government, that was very quickly implemented, and those changes were then allowed as of October last year. We have expanded in phase 1 of that already out to Teversham and Fulbourn to the east, which has been an exciting development and generally well received. We've also expanded to the north up to Northstowe, Longstanton, Oakington, and we hope to also include Babraham as well in the coming weeks. The reason I'm here is because Fen Ditton and Marley, or Fen Ditton as a whole, east and west, previously straddled 2 phases designed by the Combined Authority. So Marley, due to requests from various different stakeholders fell in phase 1, including the park and ride, whereas Fenditton Village fell in phase 2. Hold our hands up here and say that, you know, that was an error. Should have combined both areas and consulted on that basis. And I know that Anna from the Combined Authority, who leads on that, has sent an email to that effect earlier today, so that we can engage fully with all stakeholders to do that in one go. So rather than talking about particulars here about, you know, where exactly parking spaces should go or how it will operate, I instead want to just highlight how the VOI scheme operates, what we can deliver, and what the options are to manage what it looks like. Next slide, please. So in terms of who VOI is, we're originally a Swedish company, launched in 2018, originally focusing on e-scooters, but we quickly realized that e-bikes actually are an important component of the micromobility journey, offering people a lot more choice. And nowhere in Europe, honestly, has that been better received than Cambridge. It's been a leading mode of transport, and last year on both e-scooters and e-bikes, we had well over 1.4 million journeys. So it's been really well embedded into people's routines, which is fantastic to see. Next slide, please. In terms of how e-scooters and e-bikes are regulated, they do differ quite significantly. So e-scooters were brought in under a trial by the Department of Transport during COVID as a means to get people using more personal transport and get them out of sort of close contact with other people. That trial is still running. It keeps getting extended every couple of years. And that means that we're still governed by the same regulations that were surrounded it when it first started. And in particular, that means that e-scooters are regulated much the same as a motorbike or a moped would be, in that you need to have a driver's license. We have to have third-party liability insurance. You don't have to pass a physical test, but you do have to pass a test module before you can ride. And they're also very closely capped on speed, so 20 kilometers. Bikes are a little different in that you don't necessarily need to be 18 like you do a scooter. You need to be 16 or older. You can go a little faster, 5 kilometers an hour faster, 25 kilometers an hour is the top speed. But both are controlled parking in Cambridge. So mandatory parking zones that are decided between the Combined Authority, highways, City Council, in this case, South Cambs, and to make sure that it meets the needs of both riders, but without creating unnecessary conflicts with other users of the footway. We are exploring at the moment in the city centre options to move it off the footway and onto carriageway, to remove those conflicts even further, but those are very early stage, but hopefully will be the future. Next slide, please. In terms of what we do to manage the safety of the scheme, I think one statistic we're really pleased about is that consistent fall in the incident rate, so that's per million kilometers. But we continue to see how we can improve and where. So, whether that's offering a discount if you're wearing a helmet, we have a selfie feature. So if you take a selfie when you're wearing a helmet, our AI will recognize that and give you a bit off your ride. We also have a Ride Safe Academy, which offers modules on how to ride safely, how to use the road as a scooter rider. And users or people who complete those modules are rewarded with free rides. And we also direct people who have been reported for riding unsafely to that, who then have to complete the module before they can continue riding, as well as one of the first steps in a warning system, a 3-strike policy that ends with riders being banned. We also do safety events, particularly in new areas, so anywhere where we're just starting. So the next of those is at the end of the month at Darwin Green, who are implementing a number of parking spaces. We will look to do that as well in the east as and when or if we come here. Next slide, please. In terms of what it looks like when you open the app, I don't know how many users we have in the room, but you'll see an area like that on the left-hand side when you first open the app. That shows you where you can go. So that is a little outdated now, but that is the operating area. And if you zoom in a little closer, you'll see where those vehicles are located. And you can select a scooter or a bike. All you do, you can reserve it from afar. Up to about a 10-minute walk away will let you reserve a bike or a scooter. Or if you're next to one, you can just scan the QR code and you're good to go. The darker areas are no ride zones. And so we can set those according to local needs. So I know from discussions in Marley, there's a central square that's going to be pedestrianised. You know, that is an obvious case for a no ride zone. We also have slow speed zones, which you can see is the yellow area down at the bottom there. That enables us to cap the speed. So on the scooter, you know, on the scooter, a no ride zone actually will stop the motor entirely. You'll just have to turn around and leave it and then start your journey again. On a bike, it will just cut the assist. And those bikes are heavy, so it's hard work to keep going. Most people will turn around and go back. You know, some stronger cyclists may carry on through, but it will be at a very, very slow pace. But in terms of the slow speed zone, yeah, we can regulate that and also implement those where needed. The only caveat being that if it's a busy road, we really try and avoid changing speeds unexpectedly, just because feedback from riders is that if they have a bus behind them and suddenly the scooter slows down to 12 kilometers an hour, it feels incredibly unsafe. And from speaking to the police and other, you know, road safety teams, they agree. But the point being is, I think what we want to do is get people's feedback on how some of these features should be used in new areas, how they should be managed, monitored, and implemented, so that we can make it work for everyone as best as it possibly can. Slide, please. You may have seen some of these already around Cambridge. We've launched a new bike as part of this expansion. These are the first bike, well, this is the first city that this bike has been launched in anywhere. And the purpose of it was to offer a mode that was lighter, more maneuverable, and had features like a much more adjustable saddle to appeal to a broader demographic of riders. From riding it, I think it achieves that. And what's interesting is that looking at early rider feedback, that also tends to confirm it. So what we're seeing is that actually women riders take about a 2-minute longer journey on these modes, on this bike, rather than any of the other vehicles, which is really positive. These are, you know, the only additional vehicles on the street with this expansion, but all areas are open for any vehicle. So if you get on a scooter in central Cambridge and you want to end up in Teversham, that's absolutely doable. Likewise with bikes. But these are the way that we're ensuring we've got kind of high enough density that we can continue to offer the level of service that riders have come to expect. Next, please. I just had a quick look at what the demand has been like around sort of Marley and I guess a little bit up into Fen Ditton Village there. This is app opens in the last week. So you can see that already actually we're seeing quite a few people open the app speculatively to have a look at whether they might be able to find a Voi. It's a fairly good indicator of unmet demand. Generally, when we see those outside the operating area, it means that if we were to expand there, you see even more, because these are people who are probably willing to walk, 5 to 10 minutes to go and pick up a scooter or a bike, most likely along Newmarket Road. And on the right, we've received a number of requests for parking and the service, and I thought it was interesting to highlight some of those. So, I think we have a bank of this kind of data that we can also bring to some of those engagement meetings over the next couple of weeks to also help inform where we can get the most out of the service and make sure that if we are implementing parking spaces, that they are in locations that are going to be used and are worthwhile, not just going to cause a conflict. Next slide, I think. Yeah, I just quickly also wanted to touch on how to report a VOI. That this is best used if you have a quick issue which you don't necessarily want any feedback on. So you won't get a response if you use this form. Instead, hopefully the problem should just be dealt with and that will be the end of that. So for example, if there's a scooter where it shouldn't be, or if you see someone riding dangerously and you want us to check, for example, this is a good way of doing that quite simply, and we'll then take action. Okay, the next slide. These are then the best emails to contact if you want a reply. So at the top, the support email, they will respond. So for example, if you have underage riding is a good example. If you want to get into contact about someone that you suspect of underage riding, that's the best way to do it. They'll take very quick action and let you know what they've done. Often they enforce a supplementary verification check on the account. Or they will then they'll ban it basically if that doesn't then comply. And the other email address is mine. That is also a very good way of making sure things get dealt with. So do feel free to copy me into emails to support or send any feedback that you've got directly to me. So far, I've been fortunate in that I've mostly received requests for more parking and suggestions for where they'll be, but I'm sure that won't always be the case, and do make use of it, please. I think that's then it. I think that's then it. So I'll take any questions. Oh yes, this was about just how to request some of those zones and spaces that I've mentioned earlier. So yeah, if you could please email Kathy by Wednesday the 26th, that means that we'll have enough time to ensure those requests and bits of feedback are included in any proposals that we then take forward as a result of the engagement. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Theo. And it's worth noting that all of the slides, not just the VOI presentation, are accessible after the meeting. So if people want to, pull off email addresses or maps or QR codes or whatever it might be, then you can do after the meeting. You haven't missed your opportunity now because the slides passed. All that is still accessible. Theo, thank you very much. We are going to take our next presenter, and then at the end of that presentation, we'll then take questions on both the VOI presentation that you've had and the presentation we're about to have from Stagecoach. So yeah, so hold fire for the moment, but we'll invite David, who we heard from a bit earlier, up to talk to us about Stagecoach. So welcome, David. Evening.
I'm never a fond, sorry, can everyone hear me okay? I'm never a fond fan of death by PowerPoint. So this is just going to be me talking about buses. First of all, my role as Business Development Director, I look after the commercial side of things and also routes, what's viable, what's not. And there's a couple of themes I'd like to share with you tonight, please, if I may. First of all, two really important words, reliability and punctuality. Reliability is for every single service that we schedule, we provide a driver and a vehicle. That is 100% on us. And you must, and with the good board members you have in the room, they all hold us to account for that, is that is very much on us. And yes, historically in the past, we've had our challenges on that, not gonna lie, and we're truly sorry for that. But we've worked extremely hard on staff recruitment, in changing bus driver shifts. So, now drivers have a minimum of 11 hours rest between finishing one day and starting the other. We have no more than 5-hour driving pieces. So we're trying whatever we can to make bus driving something that people want to come and stay doing. And we have had a lot of success with that, in that my colleague Ross, the Ops Director, has managed to cut voluntary resignations from the bus sector by 30% year on year. So we don't struggle for drivers anymore. We do have a challenge on qualified bus fitters. So if anyone does know a good bus fitter who fancies a job, please do come and talk to us. So much so that, to be frank, we have sponsored visas from people from Zimbabwe who are currently fixing buses in Cambridge because it's extremely difficult to get qualified engineers. So what's that meant in reality? And that is, in reliability terms, we consistently now deliver 99% of all of our scheduled mileage. So 99% of the services that we say we will provide, we provide a bus and a driver for. Yes, there is still occasions when buses disgrace themselves. However good your maintenance system is, you might have a bus that disgraces itself, and there are times when people go sick. The biggest challenge, though, is punctuality, and that is getting those buses to turn up on time. And one of the biggest bugbears and frustrations we have, and I have had people say to me, well, surely in Cambridge you want to see development, surely you want to see water and electricity and power. Of course we do. And it's impossible to have no disruption. And look, there are some very good, hard-working Cambridgeshire County Council officers who work very hard to try their best to mitigate the impacts that constant roadworks and utilities have on bus services. But the simple truth is that, unfortunately, there is a cabal of utility companies and developers who just don't care, frankly. I'm sorry to be so blunt, because, you know, we struggle to get effective engagement. There is one utility provider, for example, who managed to cut off the village of Girton and Oakington one Sunday completely from a bus service, forcing everyone to walk to Huntington Road. And I got, oh, well, I paid for my streetworks permit. What more do you want me to do? And, oh, I've got to get a Tar Macadam depot to open up on a Sunday. My heart ultimately bleeds for them. But my job's to advocate for you, our customers, our passengers. And it truly pains us, really pains us when we have to cancel and regulate services purely because we can't get them in and out of the city. And the fact that, you know, we have, you know, at the moment, it's a big argument with power networks. Pern Road roundabout. Yes, they've got to get more power in the city. Get that 1,000%. But when the one, going back to the ones, you know, that's the busiest bus service in Cambridge coming through here. The 3 is not far behind it. And ditto the park and rise. And when you have people constantly digging up roads, it's very difficult to keep the buses going. Now, look, however buses are organised, whether it be franchised or whatever, you've got to have, you know, people developing the city to take a little bit more interest on the impact that they're having. You know, even when it comes to temporary traffic lights, I had one person really insult me by saying, oh, well, we'll put traffic lights up and it only delays your buses by 2 minutes. What are you moaning about? Well, I'm sorry. The way buses are put together, it's all about running time. So say, for example, the 3s that come through this area, you know, we measure from Fenditton to the far end and back with layover time and divide it by the frequency, and that gives us how many buses we need. And there isn't spare slack time in there. So if the bus gets stuck in the centre of town, that means extra buses. Now, just out of interest, I'd love to do this. How much do you think it costs to put a bus on the road? No profit, just pure cost. Just out of interest, who thinks more than £100,000 a year? Show of hands. Who thinks more than £200,000 a year? Can I say, on electrics, it's roughly about 240 grand a year to put the bus on the road before you've done anything with it, no profitability or anything like that. And for a diesel bus, you're probably talking about roughly 170 to 180,000 pounds per year to put that bus on the public highway. Now, what do you think the average passenger revenue is per customer? How much do you think we get per customer? Who thinks it's more than £2? Who thinks it's more than £1? Would I shock you if I said that on average, roughly, we get about £1.82 for every customer who gets on a bus? So you can do the maths yourself, that if you've got a £240,000 cost for an electric bus, a beautiful electric bus that's worth £500,000 each, divide that by your £1.80, that's a lot of extra people you need to get to make that service viable. So when people say to us, you've got roadworks and congestion, just shove another bus in. Well, one, you've got to be able to cover the cost of shoving that other bus in. And two, if you're not tackling the core problem of making the traffic flow, all you do is have people sat on Newmarket Road in an endless stream of buses. And how does that move us forward? So please, whatever you can do to encourage those developing the city to just sit down and talk to us. You know, even traffic signals on roundabout, for example, there was some traffic signals on the roundabout close to me recently who had the most perplexing way of doing it I've ever seen. And I've been in buses 28 years. And I got a comment along the lines of, well, your drivers aren't very good at interpreting that. To which I said back, I've been 28 years in buses and I've got computers going around this particular roundabout. So it's just having that conversation. We never make it perfect, but let's at least try, because the people of Cambridgeshire deserve better. They deserve good buses, and good buses need buses to flow. Secondly, can I talk about fares? Now, one of the biggest challenges we have are people say back to us, buses are too expensive. And we always want to say, compared to what? Because at the moment, with the fare cap, with the support from CPCA, you have people being able to get on a bus for £2 per single journey. That'll go up to £2.50 from the 1st of April. But at the end of December, the government have said enough's enough. There will be no further fare cap. So from the 1st of January 2026, the entire national bus industry has got a problem. Because going back to that £240,000 a year, or 170 for a diesel bus, you cannot run that. Ignore profitability, take profitability off the table completely. You cannot run a bus on £2, however hard you try. And those who tell you that are very inventive people. So you then have to take the view of where's the funding going to go to make up that gap. So if you want to keep your £2, someone's got to pay for that. And so at the moment, we are trying very hard to help people to see the affordability of multi-journey tickets. And for example, we have one, our Flexi 10, where you can still get a day's travel for £4.61. So what we're desperately trying to do is to say to people, as we come out the fare cap, please think multi-journey ticket, not a single ticket. Because wherever you are in the country, there's going to be some hefty price increases, in some cases 200%, maybe 300%. And that's going to have an impact on bus services, because people will turn around and say, look, I'll walk 1 day a week, or I'll car share, or God forbid, I'll get my car back out again. So something's got to move forward on fares. So we've got reliability and punctuality, and we've got fares. Can I finish, though, on one issue very pertinent to this part of the world and this area? Football traffic and the impact it has on bus services. Now, can I say, in November, I'll have worked for Stagecoach for 4 years. And one of the first things I ever did when I walked through the door was sit down with Cambridge United Football Club and look at options. Now, when we have our threes to the estate up here, away supporters just dump their cars. And it means on a match day, we end up having to suspend the bus service, go around the estate, really important customers to us. We can't get buses round. Now, work with good members like Councillor Bullitt and Councillor Bennett at the back on this particular issue. But the simple truth is the club needs to do something as well. It can't just be on everybody else to solve the problem. And a proposal is about to go to the club to say, wouldn't it be a good idea if you actually put a little money on your ticket price and used it to sort of encourage sustainable transport of people travelling to and from the ground? Because we don't want to make any money out of it. We just want to be able to run buses up and down Newmarket Road. And I'm just be interested to see what reaction we get from the club to that, because the club's got to do its bit. And up until now, the club will always want somebody else to solve the problem for it. So the time's got to come where the club engages and solves something. So 3 issues. Obviously, we're coming on to questions, Councillor Basher. So I shall now shut up and obviously welcome any questions in the question and answer session.
Great. Thank you, David, and Theo as well. So this is the question opportunity now. If anyone does have any questions for either of our last 2 speakers, so David from Stagecoach or Theo from Voi, if people do have questions, do just put your hand up. Yeah, gentlemen, towards the back.
Hello. Hello, Niall from the Marley Residents Association. It's actually a question for both speaker's very similar question, but what are the timelines for rolling out transport into Marley? So from Voi scooters, is there a current plan, or is it still up in the air in terms of scooters appearing in or near Marley? And for Stagecoach, there was reference earlier to bus routes through the other development, but a few people in Marley have apparently been told there should have been bus routes through Marley. But is that ever was the plan? Is it the plan?
Should we start with David and then?
Can I say thank you for a simply brilliant question? Can I be frank with you and say that there is a section 106 for bus routes through Marley, which is in trigger, and nobody is prepared to talk to us at all about making it happen. And I've tried at various different levels of county, and frankly, it's extremely frustrating because I'd like to do something for the people of Marley. Look, franchising's coming. So look, let's design a service which allows the people of Marley to have a service now. But look, if we pass it on to franchise, so be it. I'd like to get on with it, but I'm getting nowhere. And I've had an email correspondence with the senior people at county on 4 occasions now saying, I know for a fact that Marley's section 106 of bus enhancements is in trigger. Can we actually get it moving? And I get every excuse you can possibly think of not to bother.
Can we possibly draw Hill into this conversation? Because the fact is that Marley is a development where Hill own the land, so the council probably don't have a lot to say about buses coming onto private land. And this gentleman.
Can I quickly do the Voi part of that answer? Because I think then maybe Will can take both together. In that, I think clearly we need to get everyone in the room, elected members, residents association, etc., to kind of understand the requirements sort of as laid out there about where parking goes, what the zoning is, you know, etc. It then does, because of the land ownership, you know, it otherwise would be quite quick to implement that. I think in this instance we'll have to work with Hill to then understand sort of the legal side of that. So yeah, I guess that's the context on the Voi part.
Just, yeah, you can hear me good. Yeah, on the Voice briefly, I think Will Berry, development manager at Hill. Just to cover off the Voice then quickly. Yeah, I think as Theo alluded to in his presentation, the next step is to have a meeting with local councillors, officers, and just discuss the next steps for Voi. So the sort of, well, metaphorical wheels and potentially physical wheels are moving on that one. And then with regard to the bus at Marley, so my understanding is that there's 2 bus service contributions that have both been triggered, both been paid. So the Hill have paid the county council those contributions. So I'm not sure what the next steps are in terms of what happens to that money. I think once payments have been made, it's beyond our control.
It is, and can I say it's not your fault or issue. I'm fully aware the money's at county. It's just the last one I got was, well, it's not yet ready to go back to the developer, so we'll just sit on it for a bit longer and work it out at some point. And to be honest, I'm sorry to be so blunt and so frustrated, but look, I think there is a little bit with Section 106s at the moment, to be frank. Franchising is coming. Let's keep the money in the pot to give more options for franchising. And to be frank, I can understand something of that logic. But look, people need bus services now. And look, when franchise comes, it's fairly easy. Develop the service. Then at the point franchising come and the contract gets tendered and all that malarkey, the service is ready to be tendered. Why just not bother to engage at all? And I'm sorry, I've exchanged 3 with the most senior director responsible who holds that person, has got that money at county. And as I say, I just get fobbed off, I think is the best way of putting it.
I don't know if there's any use as well, but my understanding is in the long term, there's a primary street that runs all the way up Marley Avenue. And when phase 3 of Marley is delivered, that will connect back down on Newmarket Road. So there'll be a sort of complete plus loop available in the long term. I appreciate it doesn't solve any short term issues, but
it'd be lovely to just get started on it, because there's people on Marley now who would like a service. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I'd rather be honest with the people of Marley if that's the play. And look, this isn't about making money for Stagecoach. People find it weird that I'm really passionate about delivering for communities. And I find it really frustrating that there's a large wodge of money there, which could actually provide a good solution. and people just want to make every excuse possible not to pay it out. But it's not unusual. I've had it elsewhere. There's a development in another part of the county where, sadly, there is over £250,000 sat in a Section 106 for bus enhancements that could make a difference now to that community. And again, it's like every excuse possible. No, we can't possibly do that. And it does get very frustrating.
So can we ask for councillors' support here or MP support in raising this as an issue with the council, please? Because it sounds like we're going to need some support getting an answer and getting this moving forward, particularly on the buses. I think we've got, on the Voice scooters, I think there's more interest from the residents, and yeah, the next step is to get that meeting in place. But for the buses, it sounds like we need to unlock some conversations at a high level. Longer term plans.
Can I just say that the South Cambs councillors have been absolutely brilliant in doing everything possible within their power to raise this, and I can't commend their hard work on this issue hard enough, frankly, but sadly it's still absolute stonewalls on it.
Yeah. Okay, so not a direct answer to your question there, but yeah, at least we know where we are in the process with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take Neil first, and then we'll come to Pippa.
Hello, does that work? Yes. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
And as you know, on the county, we are very much in favour of passenger transport. We see about for every pound you invest in public transport, you get 4 back for the economy, so it saves a lot. And the beautiful picture that you had on there before of an electric bus on a guided busway. Now, both of them came from public money, in fact. So, you know, we are obviously already in a collaboration with you guys.
Definitely.
And we're going to have to squeeze your profit margin a little bit, or at least keep it on the level when it comes to franchising.
Yeah.
And Stagecoach runs franchise services in London now. So my question is, how do you feel?
Can I be honest and say that as bus operators, we don't have a formal view on franchising. It's not our place to have that. The people whose place it is to have the view on franchising are the residents of Cambridgeshire. All we can do is make sure that the residents of Cambridgeshire have all the relevant information available, open to them in terms of their options, the different models of franchising that are available, to make sure that the final decision that is made and the final contract that's implemented is give us the best possible value. On profitability, would I shock you if I said that we already have Jews Coaches of Somerset who operate our 904 service between Huntingdon and Peterborough, and it looks and smells like a Stagecoach bus, but actually it's operated by them, because actually we believe exceptionally passionately in this part of the world on working with other bus operators. I'm exceptionally humbled and proud to be chairman of the Bus Operators Association. So we see a model going forward. We're very passionate about rural, and there are ways forward on rural, but obviously, whereas the transport people get that, in terms of as part of a new network, getting that message forward, education needs to engage a bit more, and particularly the Integrated Healthcare Board, who currently spend £4.8 million in Cambridgeshire on a non-emergency patient transport contract, which frankly, Councillor Shirley, if that was in your budget, and you tendered it as part of a coordinated network, could actually deliver more best value. And I'm talking to Councillor Williams' colleague, Councillor Van der Van, who's on the health board, about that particular subject. So really, what we would like to see is a way forward for our bus service. But the final point I'll make again, though, forgive me, Councillor Shirley, is however the buses are organised, if we cannot get this developers and utility companies starting to care even vaguely about bus services, we just won't move forward. And look, you know, sort of there's a golden opportunity. I always say, remember the Heineken beer advert? If Heineken did roadworks, where you had the gas people coming along at the same time as electricity people, and it just needs the willingness on behalf of those people to want to actually do this to make it happen. Sorry.
Okay, so we've got Pippa next, and then if there's a question at the back, we'll take that, and then we've got a couple of questions online, which we'll take after the people in the room. Pippa.
No, thanks very much. And part of me being here is thank you to be able to really understand the situation more. What I'd like to commit to is, one, I'll definitely, if there's a block, then that's one of the things an MP can do is actually try and unblock that. I've heard that councillors have done a lot so far, but it's getting that same resistance from South Cams. So I will do that. I commit to do that, which is around the triggering of that section 106 to be able to get the conversations started in a clear pathway, so it's just unblocking, trying to find that. Secondly, will be around the street works. I've been talking with the county councillor who is responsible for highways on the highways committee. Councillor Beckett also just talked to me about the problem with street works where there are some operators who are not cooperating. And that is actually something that perhaps needs to be dealt with at a national level as well in terms of regulation. So I will be taking that one up as well. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Okay, we've got one more question at the back.
This is really more of a point of information. There is a private members bill which has cross-party support, including from the Lib Dems and Greens, I understand, being brought by Mark Francois. And that is to give councils much more power over how and when utilities companies do what street works.
Right.
And I understand that we can expect an update on that in July. So that's my second piece of good news for you.
Thank you.
I'm doing well.
Good, thank you very much. Until we're all reorganised, and then we never know what's going to happen. But no, thank you for that. That is helpful. We've got a couple of questions online. I'll go to the ones from Voy first, and then we'll come back to you, David, if that's okay. So Theo, first question is, this is verbatim. I see in town you have scooter stations. This would avoid random dumping of scooters. What plans are there to have more of these? Question mark.
Yeah, we do. I think where we see high demand, so particularly at the station, for example, they make a lot of sense. Where there's high demand and high capacity required. I think that will be a discussion, as part of the engagement that comes up. I think, and again with Hill too, and understanding how they want to progress. Yes.
Answering the question, maybe thinking of other schemes where there wasn't specific parking locations. My understanding is that for Voy there is only, you have to leave it in a parking spot.
Also the case, yeah. So in terms of, randomly dumping, that, that may happen if somebody has an issue with the vehicle, for example, and they have to leave it where it is. We do see that. Our team will then come and collect those. We have seen some people fake that and say there's been an issue with the vehicle in order to end their ride. We monitor that very closely. We did ban them from the chat bot previously, so they weren't able to do that. We've now banned them from the service entirely, and that's kind of our stance going forward for people who do that. But no, you're exactly right in that, actually to park a Voy, you have to be within a parking spot which is geo-fenced as per the agreement with local areas and highways. And without that, you can't end your ride. You will continue to rack up a bill and eventually get fined as well if you're a repeat offender on that front.
Okay, thank you. I think that's answered that. And then the final one for you, Theo, is there any way of reporting an issue without using the app?
Yeah, the report a Voy form you can get to online without the app.
Okay.
So if you just Google that, it will take you to an online web page where you can submit.
Okay, brilliant. Those are all the questions for Voy. David, back to you. So we've got one question. The electric buses are well received. Are there any plans to add any more of these to the fleet?
Simple answer is we'd love to, but as they're £500,000 each, it's basically going back to that argument. If you're only getting £1.80 on average per customer, it's difficult to. Now, the government has looked at further Zebra funding rounds, but to be frank, what would be lovely, we are a technology city. One of the reasons why electric buses are so horrendously expensive is the batteries and end of life for the batteries. It'd be lovely if Cambridge could come up with a solution to make the battery technology cheaper, to bring down that cost differential. So actually, but certainly we are the only bus company that I'm aware of who's made a commitment that by 2030, our fleet will be electric. So we're looking to it in the future, but in the moment, unfortunately, no.
Okay, thank you. And then, so we've got two more for you. So I know you've explained about the issues with buses on match days for football games. There's a follow-up to that. Are there any extra buses put on during match days? Again, I can't remember if you covered that.
If I'm frank, our problem is, and I've spoken to Councillors Bullock and Bennett about this in quite some depth, that whilst there's no residents-only parking, if we were to put extra buses on, we've got no guarantee anyone will get on them, frankly. Because let's be frank, if you're an away supporter, to pay a fare or dump your car and park for free, you're going to dump your car and park for free. So the idea about going to the club and saying, look, it wouldn't cost an awful lot on a match day ticket. And wouldn't it be brilliant on a match day ticket to say, right, anyone flashing a Cambridge United Football Club match ticket, away supporter or whatever, could travel for free by bus to and from the ground. I understand going to Mackey's is quite important to people before a match. So look, it would be a day ticket, and look, we're not looking to make money out of it. So really, the club want us at our expense to put loads of extra buses on, and I think the view we take rather firmly is, I'm sorry, let's see something come back in the opposite direction first. Because again, the club is very passionate about being in this part of the city, so give a little back to the community.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's answered. Thank you, David. And then we had one final one for you, and it's a very specific one, which you might, have an interest in yourself, because it's asking, could Stagecoach look at a bus during the day from Teversham to Cambridge? At present, the only one is early in the morning and returning in the evening.
And I say, I actually live in Teversham.
I know. I'm
so I can be honest. And the honest answer to that is there are so few people who actually, when it was last round got on it, it's not viable on a big bus. However, I've been talking to some very good local county members about various other models of providing services. And there's something called the Little White Bus, which is basically in the upper Wensleydale Valley, where you have communities like Teversham, where you have a low passenger base. You basically scoop all the people up, and then you wait in a bus bay for the big bus to come along with one common ticket, and you transfer people across. And now that worked brilliantly in the upper Wensleydale Valley. There was a similar one called the Little Red Bus that did something very similar. And I would absolutely dearly love to get stuck into that. But again, until at the moment we're all talking franchising and all that type of thing, I'm not able to start thinking and helping the communities with creative ideas like that, which would actually make a difference now. So really love to. So in terms of my fellow Teversham residents, that's the real answer. It's not about having big double-decker buses going back through Teversham, because there just isn't the number of people getting on the bus. But what I will say, can I salute, anyone ever heard of the town of Wittering, which is just north of Peterborough? Well, there's a simply brilliant lady there called Sue McGill. And what she's done is she's brought together the communities of Wittering, Castor, Aylesworth and others. They've written a business plan for their service. They've got a marketing plan. They're doing an ongoing marketing engagement. And as a result, they've got a tendered bus service. It works. And we have invested money in that because of the passion. So really, it also needs local community activism for people to want to get actively involved. Because when people say, do you want a bus service? Most pointless question on God's earth, because of course you do. What you've got to be saying is, right, okay, where do you go to work? Where do you go to school? Where do you go for your health appointments? Right, okay, how are you going to market this? How are you going to make it work? Have you got together with the parishes? And I think there's a model potentially for, if I may for a second, whoever the mayor is on May the 2nd, to say to rural communities to follow the model of the Wittering Bus Committee and basically say, right, if you want some priority when it comes to getting a service, are you prepared to put the legwork in to make it happen? And if you are, you get higher than just those who say, I want a bus service, because we've all got to work together on it. Sorry, forgive me, Councillor Thatcher.
Good. No, that's fine. I said it was a very specific question,
Yeah,
so I
thank you.
wasn't expecting a very specific answer, but thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, final go. Anyone else have any questions for either of our speakers? Neil, back to you.
Sorry to come back, Chair. One of the things about public transport, if you look at all of those beautiful market towns across Finland, they grew up around train stations. So sometimes you have to put in the public transport before people move their businesses and houses to where they're going, rather than thinking about the current passenger numbers. And I'd like to say a little bit about the horror of the privatized public utilities that are digging up our roads. Often all you see is highways maintenance written on it. It's not highways maintenance. These are private companies making private profits. And we are bringing in various means to try and regulate them a little bit better. One of them is called lane rental, which means that we can charge them for the amount of time that they spend disrupting our road network. But we do need some work from the central government because often they go through the public asset because they can, with all of the economic disruption that causes, instead of going through farmland, because it would cost them more in legal fees to do that. So it costs the public an enormous amount, but costs them very little because of the legacy that they have in law that gives them protection as if they are still publicly owned utilities. So we do need to take something through Parliament, I think.
Yeah, good. No, thank you. I think that's helpful. Okay, I think if that's all the questions for our two speakers, just leaves me to say thank you, David, and thank you, Theo, for coming and talking to us about your respective areas. And now we'll move on to our final topic of speakers, which is Marley. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we were due to have a representative from WSP with us to talk to us about the residential travel plan, but unfortunately he's been taken ill, so won't be with us. So it does mean we have a slightly longer session if we need it. So yeah, Niall McElroy from the Marley Residents Association to talk to us about that. So
thank you very much. Slide. We have a logo. I swear. Important things first. I stood up here last time to introduce the Marley Residents Association. We had only just formed in September last year. We've had a few committee meetings and a lot of work outside those committee meetings as well. So I want to touch on some of the good work and hopefully ways forward that we've worked with, not just inside the Residents Association, but with our stakeholders as well. So apart from a logo, move on to something less visual, but hopefully more informative. From my corporate world, my day job, I have often had to use things like objectives and key results. So I looked at mapping the outcomes from the council's community development outcomes. So you'll see them in the brackets there, but they're mapped onto objectives. I said to my committee members, this is what we're going to do from a residents association point of view. We formed because of an issue with parking, and I'm going to come back to parking in a second. But actually, the Residents Association needs to be so much more of that in terms of representing the community, not just in terms of issues that come up, but also positive engagement and creating positive things out of it as well. So there's a mix in there and reflecting the council's outcomes and then measuring. I want the residents to be able to come to me in September after a year and go, what have you done? And I can say, we've actually achieved something. Some of these are the key results that I want to measure myself, my committee members. Overall, have we actually done anything in the last year as a residents association, apart from fielding questions and dealing with things as they come up during the year as well? So to quickly run through a big objective to make sure that as a residents association, residents in Marley, both old and new, can access a range of activities and organise their own events and activities. And obviously a huge part of that is having the community centre and working closely with the Land Trust and Hill to make sure that residents, I guess, know about it. That's probably not that hard, but also know how to book it and all the other things around that as well. And as you see there from the key results in terms of using some of the events that have started to already happen in Marley that sometimes have a bit more of a marketing focus from Hill, but actually turning them slowly into more community events as well, involving us as the community, not just feeling like you're part of a photo opportunity. And we've already got some engagement on that with Hill and the new, I'm going to get her role wrong, but communities and social lead, I think, is the name of the lead at Hill we've got. So we're going to work more closely with them going forwards on that side, as well as recognising that Hill still have houses to sell and marketing is still important. And they can obviously be still at these events taking some really great photos of residents having a good time at events as well. Second one is residents are involved in shaping the culture of Marley. and aware of how to report issues and who to contact. We're working with Kathy, who is not in the room. Oh, she is in the room, around a slightly negative thing, but a residence issue log and the kind of governance structures around how we track those issues. In my role as chair, I'm very interested in taking the kind of aggregate view, the high level view of not individual issues, but actually what are the trending issues and what are the big picture things I can do to drive things forward? What conversations can I have? To a point, we have not only engaged with the Land Trust, but gone all the way up to the CEO of the Land Trust at times to engage at a high level with Alan Carr about the really big issues affecting the entire engagement at Marley, as opposed to individual flower beds being slightly wrong. In terms of key results, the issue logs, governance structure, and then, making sure that residents know how to raise issues as well, both through the Residents Association and other channels as well. There's a second page, sorry. Move on to the second slide. So also the council's outcome around Marley residents supported to attain good mental and physical health. So we want to make sure there's access to a range of physical activities and residents know how to access support as needed. A key result is making sure that the new residents joining Marley, because it's still a growing community, know about the opportunities available to them. And also the key result too was something that's been discussed for a number of months, which is a defibrillator being installed at the hangar building. We had some discussions with the Fen Ditton Parish Council, who've done good work in that area. Other locations, Marley is quite a big development now, and there is no provision as right now for defibrillator use within Marley. That is changing, and I understand Amanda may have an update, or certainly there is now work to do that at the hangar building in Marley, which is really great. And I can't claim that we've had a whole lot of delivery in that as a key result, but we certainly hopefully instigated the talk around the need for one. So I'm going to claim that one. So residents can access and share information via WhatsApp groups, Facebook pages, create their own newsletter, and the service directory as well. We have not surprisingly, probably like most communities around the UK, have a very lively WhatsApp community with lots of subgroups that I now act to moderate quite lightly, but I might have to step in when conversations get particularly lively. We have a Facebook page now run by one of my committee members as well, and we're working with the Land Trust, who have the ability to issue the newsletter as well. So that should come to pass, partly also because of the good work of the Land Trust as well. And then the last objective, stakeholders are actively engaged via steering groups to enable management and maintenance, so that they don't all have to turn up to meetings like this. So one of the key results is that Residents Association, myself and Katrin is here as well in terms of attending at things like this event, but also the building user group for the hangar building, the community centre we have, and also at the community development steering groups as well. And I'm trying to measure the progress and report on that as well. And this is a really good forum for talking about the good work we do, hopefully. Right, that's enough for tables. Let's move on to something. As I said, these are photos submitted. I didn't take all these photos. I don't go around taking photos all day. And although some of these are because I have a flat that looks down one of the key areas in Marley. So I have quite a vested interest in watching bad practices. But as I said, the Residents Association formed partly because of a reaction from Hill. Residents started complaining about parking within the development. I think Marley is not unique, but it has a certain setup where quite early on, as you come into Marley, you have a Reform Pilates, a co-op, a community centre that can be hired out. Right now, very popular Italian deli and cafe, and a school. So there's a lot of external visitors coming into Marley. Marley wasn't developed as having its own car park. There's the park and ride, which we need to ignore, really, don't we? But it doesn't have much visitor parking. There's 2-3 bays outside Co-op and a few bays outside the Kingsley building. So we have a huge problem when the community centre is hired out by external people, school drop-off and in the morning and the evening, and also a few other issues. Residents also don't know where to park. And one of the issues is the way Marley was designed in terms of the dropped curves and the pink paving to encourage the idea of shared use of space. But what it really does, as you can see from some of the photos, such as the one on the top left, is people coming into Marley don't know how to park in Marley. We don't have any bays, we don't have any road markings, and part of the issue is that it hasn't been handed over to council, so there are no formal council road markings. We have already been discussing this, and we have some good suggestions. Lawrence from planning suggested that at Darwin Green, and I understand other developments as well, temporary road markings in collaboration with the developers to encourage people to park in good places that are safe, not near junctions, opposite T junctions or near the school. So we'd like to work with Communities Hill, Land Trust and everyone else to see if we can do that, even just as a temporary measure until the roads are handed over to the council, because that will be many years in the future, given the future phases of Marley. But also working more closely with the Land Trust about the instructions that are given to people who hire out the community centre, make absolutely clear it doesn't come with parking. And yeah, and also agreeing with residents what's right and wrong. So I think also I'm a strong believer in not just complaining about issues, but coming up with solutions as a community. So as a residents association, I believe we have a role to play in forming a residents' formal collective view of what's right and wrong in terms of parking. Don't park up on the pavements. And then giving the people the ability to challenge that, and maybe even have flyers or something that as a community we put on cars if they're parking badly, to warn them this is not in line with the Marley community's parking guidelines, particularly when, as I say, parents drop off children in the morning. There's a safety concern. There's been a number of instances where just this Sunday, when it was a nice sunny, warm day, the bollards were down outside the community centre, and we had a child very nearly hit because a person from outside Marley didn't understand the road markings or where they could park, and drove down towards Salentos and almost hit this child. So we have issues at the moment we need to solve, but I believe it's a combination of working with the developer, council, and as a community also doing more to make people sure people understand where they can and can't park as a community, as a positive thing, rather than trying to expect someone else to solve the problem. Move away from parking, get onto a nicer thing. And I want to talk about, the Marley Easter event. Easter isn't that far away. I want to highlight some of the great work that Catherine and Kathy are doing in terms of bringing the group together, start organising some sort of event. So hopefully we will have something to bring the community together. I wanted to finish on a vaguely positive point as well. Any questions? So we can stay on this picture.
Come on to questions yourself. I was actually going to take the update from Amanda from the Land Trust, and then we might do questions for both those groups at the same time, if that's okay with you. So I'll just say thank you now for that presentation. I'm going to invite Amanda Peters up from the Community Land Trust. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, my name's Amanda. I've been in post as Estates and Community Officer just since January this year now. I manage the community centre, including the booking system and obviously the green spaces around Marley as well. A little bit about the Land Trust. The Land Trust is a charity committed to long-term sustainable management of open space for community benefit. We want the green space we manage to bring long-term benefits to the community, as well as providing great spaces on the site to enjoy. We've got many parks on Marley and a lovely wooded area that's well used by dog walkers at the moment. Also inspiring the current and next generation through vocational outdoor education and training opportunities, which is something we'll look to do. Obviously, I've not been in post very long, but going forward, we'll plan on doing things, that will engage people in that area. Volunteering events. I do believe in the past there's been litter picks organised, and that's something we're planning, me and Kathy together, going forward in the next month or so. And the creating, restoring and managing green spaces to improve natural environments. There are lots of wildflowers on Marley, so we're trying to encourage it through that. Things that I've sort of done since I've been in post, the builder user group. I think this is something that we've already had one meeting of, but just one. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. And we do have a meeting date, I think, within the next month set up. Issues that we've had over the last couple of months include the disabled access to the community centre. This is in the process of being done, but we are just awaiting confirmation on how we're going to proceed with this, just because we need to be able to control access into the centre rather than it being open 24/7. As Niall said about the defibrillator, this will be ordered in April when the new tax year starts. So that is going to happen, and it will be placed outside of the community centre so it can be accessed by all. I know there's been some issues with the cleaning of the building, especially the floor in the community hall, for people who are using it for dance and yoga classes, things like that. We have had a deep clean done on the floor and been working with Encore to improve the cleanliness overall of the centre, and I think it's definitely moving forward. And we have ordered a new floor scrubber as well, which again will arrive in April. So hopefully that will keep the floor in good condition. Site maintenance wise, there's been a few things across the site, like unwanted terrace fencing that's been left from the building. That's been removed now, and also the steps that had been covered over the railway line, just with debris from winter and things like that's now been cleared as well. Parking. We've amended our terms of hire so that we do discourage people coming onto the site or up and taking the bollards down. So hopefully, and we'll obviously there's a lot more to do on the parking there anyway. I think this last slide is really just about the building user group. So it's just a little bit of information there, but the idea is that we would meet quarterly so that people can communicate their views, and hopefully make the community facility better for everybody. That's it from me.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of time now for questions. So if anyone does have any questions for either of the speakers, either your representative from the Residents Association or Amanda from the Community Land Trust, please do raise your hand, or if you're online, do type it in the chat and we'll come to that. One at the back.
Thank you. Councillor Naomi Bennett again, Abbey Ward. Amanda, I'm looking for a temporary home for our Squared Circle Boxing Club. Is there any possibility that the community centre might be appropriate?
For a boxing club, I don't see why not. I mean, it would be a matter of discussing availability if you're looking for a regular slot. So that's something we could discuss. Okay.
Good. Hopefully your new scrubber's good at getting blood off the floor.
We like a challenge.
Do. Are there no other questions for our representatives? We don't have anything online, do we? Anything online?
Just a suggestion rather than a question. But Niall, I thought you did some quite good work. And it wasn't a massive thing, but you gave a good example, and you kind of gave I'm putting you on the spot here, but you gave quite a good example that it wasn't a massive deal, but I thought it was quite a helpful intervention. I wondered if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. So there was a person consistently parking on that lowered pink paving, but essentially because of the building works, they were parking a very small, it was only a mini, it wasn't even a long car, but they managed to park it right up onto the pink paving up against the hoarding for the new building work. And what they apparently didn't realize was that car was now completely blocking the cycle path that is the main artery in and out of Marley, and is actually used quite a lot by residents at all times during the day. And you could see bikes having to literally stop and go around the car. Because of where I live, I watched it and I worked out who the person was, and I recognised, luckily, that they worked at the nearby Monkey Puzzle nursery. So I just emailed the manager through their general email address, said, look, I know it's probably one of your people doing it. Could you just have a kind word with your employees about parking? And she emailed back very kindly and said, I really apologise. I'm not only going to speak to the person, but also raise it in our staff meeting as well. And it created a really positive engagement. And now I have a contact to the nursery that I didn't before, and a positive outcome from that as well.
Great, thank you. And yes, lady in the middle here.
This is really only a completely observational thing from me. Oh, sorry. From me this is just my point of view, and in the community as a whole, everyone is very anti cars in some ways, and yet all of a sudden, I went to the first meeting when they were thinking of building Marley many years ago, and the first meeting was, we've got this picture of Marley, and everyone will walk to the school, and there won't be need for parking, and yet it has arisen now. There is a problem. So, and that's one observation, that people do use cars. Going back to the buses, sorry about this. So it's Cambridge United create a lot of problems with parking on them, but now they are building blocks of flats. They're going to build them just on the pavilion, the bowling green. There'll be blocks of flats, there'll be a community centre and very little parking. So I envisage that in the future, when that's all built, that where Whitehall Estate will become very much a parking spot for all the people that go to the community centre, the library, the nursery school, who live at the flats. It's not going to be just a Cambridge United problem on a Saturday or possibly one day and one evening in the week. It will become a problem non-stop all the time. Sorry about that. It's just two sort of things I think.
It has been noted by residents, including myself. It's slightly ironic that a community was built between car sales rooms and a park and ride, and then told not to use cars.
Yeah. But I think your comment's been noted, but yeah, obviously you've had a response on that from the Residents Association. But yes, at the back there.
Councillor Bennett, Abbey Ward again. Could I just say that the nursery and the community centre and library are all replacements for facilities we already have in worn out buildings, and we have quite a lot of information about how people travel to those facilities, including even numbers of people dropping off their kids by bike and walking. I mean, we are in an area where 40% of residents don't have a car, and it is a very hyper-local facility. So I think library and nursery, there will be very little impact on parking. It's mostly going to be affordable social housing on the bowling club site. It will be made very clear to residents applying on HomeLink that there is no parking provided on the site. So we think that people who do want a parking space will be looking elsewhere. One thing where I do agree with you is on the community centre. Anybody who's ever held a kids' party in a community centre knows that you need parking because you need to be bringing a lot of stuff over. And I think that is the one Achilles heel. But we're not going to be seeing 113 households parking up at Marley. That is just not going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's again, helpful commentary, and I think that's been noted. Okay, I mean, we do have about 20 odd minutes of the meeting left. If people don't have any further questions for your local community representatives, we do have a bit of time now to ask any general questions, either of any of the previous speakers, or if anyone wants to make any comments or ask any sort of general questions about Marley or Cambridge East in general. So, I mean, if anyone does have anything either online or in the room, please do put your hands up, or if you're online, put your comment into the chat, and we can try and tackle those. No, I can't see anything. So I suppose, well, with that then, if we've covered all the speakers and the Q&A, we'll draw it to a close there. But I just want to say thank you very much to all of our speakers for taking the time to come prepare information and talk to us and field questions this evening. It's very much appreciated. And, you know, the whole purpose of these forums is to share information. So all the speakers that have come and given up their evenings, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the residents of Cambridge East, whether you're in Marley or outside of it. You know, thank you for taking an interest in your community and for asking some you know, insightful questions that undoubtedly will help others, not just yourself. You know, thank you to our officers for organising the event. It's very much appreciated. And, you know, these forums are information sharing. You know, it's not just death by presentation, it's an interactive experience. So, you know, I thank the officers for making it as interactive as possible, you know, by hosting online, for example. So thank you very much to everyone for taking part, and we'll close the meeting there. Thank you.